I'm always thinking, I'm always asking, how can I reduce complexity? How can I simplify my life? What can I subtract? There's one other very simple idea that's changed the way I think and live, and it comes from Charlie Munger, who has been Warren Buffett's partner for over 40 years. Munger is one half of the most successful investment team that ever lived, and I was so excited to meet him that I actually traveled 3,000 miles to Los Angeles for a 10-minute interview. Munger was 93 years old, and he looked frail in this dark, baggy suit, but his mind was as beautiful as ever. I'm sitting there almost knee to knee with this legendary icon, and he's peering at me through these spectacles. And he explains in this deep, croaky voice that what you really want to do in life is focus on one thing. Focus relentlessly on this one thing. Don't be a fool. Munger is one of the smartest people I know, but he told me that he spent an inordinate amount of time focusing on actually reducing what he calls standard stupidities and idiotic behavior. What he explained to me is that it's very difficult to be smart, but it's actually surprisingly easy to be non-idiotic. And it gives you a tremendous advantage if you work systematically and consistently to reduce your own stupidity over the course of your lifetime. But how? Munger tends to collect many examples of disasters, and then he asks himself, what idiotic actions caused this terrible outcome? Once he's identified these idiotic actions, these foolish actions, he says, well, let me not do that. This habit of thinking first about what not to do turns out to be an incredibly helpful strategy when it comes to investing. If you want to be a successful investor, the first thing you want to do is say, well, how could I be a terrible investor? Thanks to Munger, this is a method that I've used really consistently over several years. For example, we recently had a family dinner and my daughter Madeline says, Dad, shouldn't you be buying Bitcoin? And there's a part of me that's thinking, yeah, everyone's getting rich overnight. Cryptocurrencies are surging and I want a piece of the action. But then I remind myself, well, one thing that terrible investors do all of the time is they buy overheated assets that they don't actually understand just because they can't bear to miss out on the action. Will Bitcoin continue to surge? Is it a fad? I don't know. I have no idea. But I do know that betting, gambling, wildly, and without any knowledge on whatever's hottest today tends to be a standard stupidity. It's a fantastic way of getting yourself in trouble. And knowing that, I have a simple rule. I'm not going to do it. As Munger told me, once you actually focus on systematically reducing standard stupidities in this way, it's an incredibly helpful way of just keeping yourself out of trouble. But it turns out that this is a wonderful strategy, not only in investing, but actually in life. Munger told me that if you want to have a happy life, you should start by looking at all of the idiotic behavior that is likely to guarantee that you'll have a miserable life. And then don't do that. To give you an example, Munger has this list of standard stupidities, of idiotic behavior that gets in trouble, where he says, okay, so don't become addicted to drugs and alcohol. You should be more reliable. If you want to have a terrible life, be unreliable. Harbor grudges, harbor resentment, seek revenge. And then he said, also indulge in envy, which he describes as the dumbest of the 7 deadly sins because it's not even fun. And I started to realize that actually this is an incredibly helpful strategy in my own life, and I really wanted to adopt it. And so recently I was having dinner in New York City with a great investor named Matthew McLennan, and we drank 2 bottles of superb wine. And I live about 45 minutes outside New York City, so I take the train home and my car is sitting there waiting for me at the train station. And it's about a 7-minute drive back to my house, and it's almost midnight, and I'm tired and I want to go to bed. But I'm thinking, am I drunk? And I'm thinking, well, I don't think I'm drunk. I don't feel drunk. But what's the downside if I'm wrong? What happens if I'm stopped and I lose my driver's license? What happens if I hurt someone? Then I asked myself, what would Munger do? And the answer is pretty obvious. This is an idiotic bet. The downside is just catastrophic. So it's something I just shouldn't do. I shouldn't drive. So I call my son Henry and he comes to pick me up. And I leave my car at the train station. What I've learned from the greatest investors is that nothing is more important than simply avoiding catastrophe. Because if you want to succeed, both in markets and in life, the first rule is that you have to survive. You have to stay in the game.